Sorry.
Yeah, well, this is for extreme camp, organic camp, but some people really like calendula for it.
Yeah, I have tried hemp. I mean, I'm using it religiously. And I don't know if it's anything that can be gotten rid of. I just don't.
Well, you might want to put this one on. I think calendula is...
So what are we cooking up here?
I only have the bratwurst left, unfortunately. The bison smoky is sold out already.
Okay, so we're here with Guy. He's the owner of Sun Valley Farms, and today we're having the GMO rally with Heidi Osterman from the True Food Foundation here. And I noticed that you had a sign up here, Guy. You can explain a little bit about this.
My daughter did that for a school project about genetically modified food, and she actually did quite well at the school with this, explaining it to the kids, bringing awareness to different people and stuff. So it actually worked out really well. And I didn't know she was this involved. She's only 11, but she knows a lot about it. And most of the people at school now are starting to realize what genetically modified food is, why we should be aware of, where to find it and stay away from it, and how we're fighting to get it labeled and stuff.
Nice, that's fantastic. It's great to see that the kids are catching on, and our kids are going to be a big part of the solution to what's going on here. Because, because unfortunately, a lot of the parents aren't stepping up and voicing their concerns, or they're just starting to learn, and it's the kids actually coming home to educate the parents again, which is awesome. It's different in your case because you're already an organic farmer, so
I am.
Thank you very much, Guy.
Thank you.
Hey, Gord, give us a friendly wave.
Saw you coming in the camera, that's why I ran.
Thanks, sir. Take care. Thank you. You too.
Keep on, they keep us dead on in mountains.
Now you've been holding that the whole time, right? You've been holding it. So that would be impossible. Yeah, I know. Isn't that clear? Oh, sorry, it's back on this finger. just stuff like that amazes me. So, I've been doing this for 42 years.
That one's mine.
The t-shirts are right here. $5 a piece for a perfectly good t-shirt, and if you don't like it after the rally, put it back, take your money back out of the jar. But if more people run around with these t-shirts, there will be more awareness. And we also have some stickers somewhere. Do we have the stickers? Heidi will bring out the stickers. The bumper stickers are $2 a piece, so you just help yourself. It's strictly honor system. You just take your change out of the jar, put your money in the jar, and hopefully we will create more awareness for the cause here. And yes, this size fits everybody, it seems. You're looking good in that. Right over there with that big fork. And Heidi will explain to you in a minute what the fork is all about. In the meantime, the more people wear a t-shirt, the better. And you can probably sleep in it too. We have notified the local paper kind of on short notice, but who knows? I think it would be best if Heidi stood on the stage now. She's a little bit on the shy side and hasn't eaten lunch yet, but she will have to take the microphone. Heidi Osterman, president of the True Food Foundation for the last 3 years and the most active person in genetically modified fighting in all of Canada.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I still have some beautiful signs that are looking for a home, which I'll explain these signs later. This one is Be Safe. Anybody here care about bees? Any beekeepers? Anybody who eats honey? Okay, then this is your sign. Okay, who wants the fish and the tomato sign? You got that one, good. Is there anybody here with children? Children going once, going twice. Modified apples. The Wicked Witch is feeding modified apples to young, innocent children like yours. Any more signs, darling? Oh, this is a scary sign. I need somebody really brave for this scary sign. Wow. Oh, no. More signs, Dietrich.
More signs.
Everybody has to have a sign. Don't have to hold it. Yeah. There's the brains. That's awesome. Up there.
All right. Anyone over there on the lawn, please feel
Everybody,
free to come
let's
up
squish
to the
together.
area. We look better with
It's a
numbers.
family photo.
Gotta
We're
show
one
the
big family.
politicians.
Dieter, shut up. I'm talking. Just kidding, sweetheart. We have a few more signs. It's your last chance. We're creating history.
Spread out that. Everyone move that way. Scoot over that way.
Everybody move over that way.
Yeah, you're kind of one side. Keep going all the way up. Just spread out. We'll use up the whole bench now.
How come they can hear you and not me?
There are at least 10 more signs up here that anyone can take.
We'll take a practice picture. Everyone just look at me and say no GMO all at once. No GMO.
No GMO.
Perfect.
Fee-fi-fo. GMO has got to go. GMO has got to go. GMO has got to go. Okay, enough. How about, do you know the words to Idlevise? What do you say? Idlevise. Yeah, I've got a new version of it. You want to hear it? I can't sing Worth a Darn, but here goes. Summerland, home of the Frankenstein apple, unpure but white. We won't bite. Then it goes on from there. Okay, or how about, here's a new, what about the song The Wall? Do you know the song The Wall? Okay. We don't need no gene pollution. We don't need no seed control. Monsanto, leave those genes alone. We had better all keep our day job, man. But you're such a fun crowd. I'm enjoying this. Okay, is there, we're just waiting for the farmers. Is there any farmers already here? Any farmers? One farmer, two farmers. Are there any more farmers coming? I know. Where's Forbes? Okay, we're waiting for you, bud. Come get your sign for your photo. Listen up. Here's a super trick question. What is this? Hey, you guys are early break crowd. That's awesome. The reason I'm holding this fork is because this is not only a fork, it's either your best friend or your worst enemy. And trust me, I'm a certified nutritionist. This is what I do for a living, is teach people what to eat and what not to eat to be healthy. So now, this is also a symbol of this talk. So this talk could be called Occupy Your Fork. You can't occupy Wall Street perhaps, and can't do anything what's going on in the wars, but you have control of this, and you have control of your wallet. Between those two things, you have control over GMOs. You just don't know it yet. So first of all, to explain what a GMO is and isn't. A GMO, the GM is used very loosely. Genetic modification, people say, oh, everything's genetically modified. Well, that is not the case. They're confused. They're thinking it's a form of hybridization. Hybridization is when you take, for example, a grape and you breed it with another grape and you have a new variety of grape with new traits. That's hybridization. But it's loosely called genetic modification. That's where a lot of this confusion comes in. What I'm talking about is transgenics. It's mating together things that would never ever have the potential to share genes. Doesn't matter how long you toss that tomato into the fishbowl, there ain't nothing happening. So now, there's only two main traits that have been introduced for the last 15 years, 20 years. One of those traits is that the plants produce their own insecticides internally. For example, the corn produces its own insecticides in every kernel. So you can't wash that off. Secondly, the other trait is that the crops that are genetically modified can be top sprayed with Roundup, which is a very toxic chemical. This chemical will kill every green, natural, living thing except for genetically modified plants. So between these two traits, these two GM technologies, we now have plants that are making their own pesticides internally, and these same plants can be top sprayed with chemicals and they won't die. So as a consumer, you're getting an awful lot more pesticides and herbicides in and on your food supply. We already linked that to lymphomas and Parkinson's and many other diseases. But then it gets worse than that. However, the biotech industry would have you think that they're there to save the world, right? And I will talk about the apple. The biotech industry, companies like Monsanto, there are many, there's DuPont and Bayer and Syngenta and others, but the main player in Canada, North America, is Monsanto. Is everybody familiar with Monsanto? Does anybody not know Monsanto? Okay, just a brief thing about Monsanto. Been around for 100 years, lovely little company. They were involved with the atom bomb, an Agent Orange and dioxin, PCB, DDT, aspartame, Roundup, and now they want to control the global food supply by owning all the patented seeds. So GM technology is basically about owning seeds, because all of these GM plants, the farmers can no longer save their seeds. They have to buy the seeds from the company, and they have to buy the corresponding herbicides and pesticides. So basically, it takes free seeds out of farmers' hands and replaces them with patented corporate seeds. Is that fair? Do you know what happens in the prairies when genetically modified seeds or pollen drift into a neighboring field? Is there anybody here who can control the wind? Well, people like Percy Smizer, he was a farmer growing canola, and suddenly GM canola showed up in his field. So what happened? Monsanto knocked on his door and gave him a lawsuit for using the technology without a license. Can you believe that? His field is contaminated through no fault of his own, and he's sued for using the technology without a license. Another thing we can raise, they would not just sustain themselves. Anyway, going back to local issues, does everyone know which foods are already modified in Canada? There's corn, you know about corn, canola, soy, right? Sugar beet, and in North America, cottonseed. That's used for animal feed and also for cooking oils. These are in almost all boxed and processed foods. Anything that has a label that has corn, canola, soy, food is just the same as every other food. There is no need for a label for something that's the same. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a fundamental contradiction there, because these patented foods are not the same as regular foods. Just the fact that it has a patent means it's radically different. So therefore, this food is radically different. However, let's talk about safety for a moment. Safety. studies have been conducted not by Health Canada and not by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency or any medical outfit. The safety studies have been done in-house by the corporations like Monsanto that are producing these genetically engineered products. And we don't even test their homework. We don't even do a test to see if our test results are the same as the companies. Basically, what has happened is those results are just rubber stamped by our government as if Monsanto says it's safe, good enough for us. Is that good enough for you? Because that's not good enough for me. It is not good enough when we're using our children as test guinea pigs, and not to mention ourselves. What about those mothers who are feeding their babies genetically modified soy formula and they don't even know it's genetically modified because we don't have labeling in Canada? So we must have labeling. Now, before you get too discouraged about this whole thing, we have a little local issue that I want to talk about. The GM apple. They tried to introduce this about 10 years ago, wasn't it? Was any of you involved in the fight then? Okay. And it was knocked down because consumers didn't want it, farmers didn't want it, nobody wanted it, and that problem went away. And now it's rearing its ugly head again. It's rotten to the core. I think Granny Smith would change her name. But here it is again. So this company, Okanagan Specialty Fruits, is seeking approval for this genetically modified apple that won't brown. So this apple, you can slice it and dice it and leave it in the sun, leave it anywhere you want for a week, and you can come back a week later and it'll look just as white as the day you left it. Well, that doesn't serve us consumers any. It just means we're eating old food that looks new. So think commercial application would be the next time you're on an airplane and they give you apple snacks. Well, that's 2 weeks old. Or what about school lunch programs? Or what about buffets or old folks' homes or hospitals? So it's all about the industrialization of food. It's a commercial industrial usage, so it's all about money. But what about health? And what about the risk to our natural farmers? We know already that all these other crops like canola and corn and sugar beet have all crossed over, and so now there is no such thing as canola that's not genetically modified. Hello. Aww, you're cute. This is my daughter. No, really. She's too well behaved. Where was I? Okay, let's just, I have no idea where I was. Help me out here.
Canola crossed over.
Oh yeah, okay. So our natural farmers here, both conventional and organic, are threatened by the introduction of the genetically modified apple. Because Neil Carter, this is his solution, so there will be no chance, no threat at all to the farmers, because he's going to stop that problem of bees bringing the pollen from farm to farm by doing what? Do you know what his solution is? Hedges. Hedges. He said, I'm not kidding you, I went like this in my ear. I heard him on CBC radio. He said, no, not to worry. Bees stay put, they don't go far. We're going to make hedges. I'm like, well, you better start planting them now and wait till they're 23 feet tall. And then, well, you're going to have a concrete cage over the whole orchard too, because that's the only way a bee won't find its way into it. Bees, as we know, can fly up to 3 kilometers when they need to find food. So this idea that there's no threat of contamination to our orchardists is just complete and utter nonsense. I think, Dr. Whittle, were you going to talk about this corn study briefly?
Well, you go to, I will talk about that.
Well, okay. Well,
If you want
so
to,
going back to testing, all the testing is done by the biotech companies, as I've said already. And yet our governments have basically rubber stamped them and just allowed these products onto our market without telling the consumers and without labeling. Well, what happened in Europe is really interesting. In Europe, there's virtually no GM foods in the supermarkets. And what is there is labeled. So you can read genetically modified soy, corn, whatever. But there's almost none there. So what happened in Europe that's different than here? Well, one thing is the British government decided to fork out in those days a lot of money, probably $2 million or something in the early 1990s, for a safety study concerning animals. It was the best study that ever had been conducted in the world. It was one of the top scientists with 20 scientists working below him to make sure the perfect protocol. And this protocol was to be used to show the safety of GMO foods to all of Europe. So it was to prove definitively the safety of GM foods. So he ran the study, and then he went to the Prime Minister of the time and said, I wasn't planning to give you a quick answer, but just on my test results, what we've got so far, there's no way you can put this food out on the market. And you know what the government told him? We don't know why you're telling us this. It's been out for 3 years. So they told him to be quiet. So this is because the government just believed the companies that it was safe and no need to test. They just did this as an extra little insurance policy just to calm people down, to make sure that they could say we tested it. But when the test results came back horrific, they didn't want to tell the public since they already released the food. So they told him that he ought to keep that information to himself. This happens quite often with independent or with researchers, but this was paid for by taxpayer money. And not only did he not stay quiet, he went everywhere. He was, remember how BP, the oil spill was?
How do you remove it when it turns out that this particular item causes cancer? How do you remove it from the environment? Exactly. There is no way of getting rid of genetically modified traits once they're in the environment, which is actually worse than having nuclear pollution. Once you have an explosion, nuclear bomb, or Fukushima, eventually that radiation will abate because nuclear stuff has a half-life. Stuff that is in the environment and can reproduce will be there forever and will actually increase. Does anyone here not know about the rabbit plague in Australia? When they introduced rabbits into Australia, they took over. And even today, they have a real problem with too many rabbits. Now, rabbits are cute and they don't cause anybody any cancer, but still it is a major problem. So much like the rabbits were set into a vacuum in Australia, these seeds that are produced unnaturally by Monsanto and similar companies can never be removed. They're worse than nuclear pollution. And that's one argument that you should use when someone asks you, why? Why are we fighting this? So Heidi has already alluded to the study from France that was just published 2 weeks ago. The rats are getting cancer. Now, that corn has been approved by Health Canada, which is actually nothing to do with Health Canada. Should actually be called Rubber Stamp Canada, because Health Canada rubber stamps anything that the FDA comes up with and doesn't do any research. They rubber stamped Monsanto's corn in 2001, that particular corn that's now showing all these effects on kidney damage, liver damage, and tumors. The study on the animals wasn't published until 2004, 3 or 4 years later. You heard right. So 4 years later, we actually get an animal feeding study, but it was only 90 days. The rat lives about 2 years, so they're not even past teenage. And, you know, tumors and that sort of thing happens when a person gets older, and the same in animals. The study in France was done for the lifetime of the rat, and things really started to happening at 4 to 7 months of life, and of course, more so as the rats were getting older, and then also found out that the life expectancy of the rats was reduced by 60 to 70%. So when you have those kind of findings, there should be immediate action being taken, right? Well, maybe, but the member of parliament locally has not shown up and has not sent an email to say why he isn't showing up. And so far they've ignored us. We've submitted 5,000 signatures to Ray's speaker. And he had been voting on labeling GMO issues. And when we submitted those 5,000 signatures, he asked Heidi, what foods are genetically modified? He had already voted on it. Well, we have all our theories how that works in Ottawa. What would I like to tell you about? Heidi is a certified nutritionist. I'm a medical doctor. I'm very cynical about the medical profession. I've actually opted out of the healthcare system. Some of you may know me, some don't. And I'm not making any advertisements for myself. I'm close to retirement age. Don't come to me. But I'm proud of the fact that I mostly, for every prescription I write, I discontinue about 100. And we do that with detoxification and nutritional medicine, and that's where Heidi, as a nutritional, a certified nutritionist, comes in. And yes, if you ask me about the contents of this box, that could be potentially genetically modified corn. And the old joke still stands: the box is worth more than the contents.
The founding families and had a beautiful orchard there. And I have a picture of myself by an apple tree that Grandpa gave to me, which unfortunately, when they sold their property for condos, bang, there that went. So I'm really against this genetically modified stuff. I just want to stand up to say that I'm against it. And one of the reasons that I came today is because way back in 1980, my mom got breast cancer up in Alberta. And the Cancer Society there said that they got it. And we had a shock to our family last year when the doctor now said to my 70-year-old mother, guess what? You've got cancer in both breasts and your hip. That was a shock. And so when I heard on the radio the talk about this genetic modification and the rabbits and to do with the corn, I know it sounds funny and weird, but that's where my brain went to, because our family has been huge corn eaters because of our Mohawk history. So I just wanted to say those two things, and I'm here to stand. I think that one of the things that we should do is that we should have for our people in our communities, they already are doing walks through the grocery store to teach people what's there and what's in the food. So let's do the teaching about
against GMOs myself too. I think we
modified
need them.
items.
Nature's done a pretty good job on our own, I think, supplying us with all the food and nutrition we need without us trying to tamper with the genetics. And we just don't really seem to know what we're doing with most things, never mind manipulating the genetics of organisms and food. So I'm just going to juggle a few apples here because I said, it's the one thing I'm good at is juggling. Well, not the only thing, but the one thing that I consider myself good at, I guess. And I want to do something to show my appreciation for all of you guys and my support for the cause. So do a little bit of apple juggling for you guys, and then I'm going to hit it.
A little bit tricky to do with four.
Nice. Hello, my name is George Schwartz. My family's been organic farmers for 15 years plus. So I want to talk to you a little bit about who wants these apples in the first place. As a grower, I can tell you that growers do not want this apple. We're going to lose our marketplace if we bring this apple in. Europe doesn't want it. Most of the other countries we ship to don't want this apple. Do you consumers want it?
No.
No one I know of that has a choice wants this apple. So if the growers don't want it, the markets don't want it, consumers don't want it, where's the push coming from? It actually comes down to the dollars. It's multinational companies that are lobbying our governments and forcing through policies and dictating how our food is grown and what comes into the marketplace. It's got no health benefits. If anything, it's detrimental to our health. So when people talk about genetically modified foods, we actually have been modifying foods through breeding techniques for hundreds of years. Just that's the way agriculture in our human population has been. But what we're doing now is we're crossing the species barrier. We're taking one species that would never cross with another, and we're using bacteria and viruses to insert those genes into the food, and then we're eating it and expecting to stay healthy. All the things that they said about genetically modified food has been proved untrue. It does cross the species barrier. Now they're finding that blood tests done on pregnant women are coming back 97% of pregnant women in North America are testing GMOs in their blood systems. So of course the babies being born from those women have GMOs in their blood system already. We never had that choice to be guinea pigs. I don't want to be a guinea pig. I don't think any of you want to be guinea pigs to some big multinational company. I have a lot of young friends, people that I've known from birth, and I know that they're the ones that are going to make the change, because it's their future. We just have to be there to back them up, you know, stand behind them and force this issue. Another point is, a friend of mine said, well, you know, there's this organic food. How can you say you're organic? The air is not organic, the water's not organic. That's something that is an issue for all of us to deal with. You know, we all have to push and make sure that our water gets cleaned up, make sure our air gets cleaned up. But now with this genetically modified, it's in the food itself, and I don't know if we can clean that up anymore. Like the doc was saying, once it's there, how do you recall it? It's the bomb that just keeps going off all the time. It never stops. So for the kids, it's so important that we fight this issue. This is, I believe, as a farmer, I believe this is the most important food issue that we've ever dealt with. Way beyond pesticides, way beyond anything else. This is a huge issue. And another person said to me, well, you know, how can you compare organics and conventional? And I said, well, you know, about 100 years ago, there was no chemicals at all. There wasn't any genetically modified, there wasn't any chemicals. Organic food was just called food. So, one more point that I got to make. A friend of mine who just had to leave early, she said, whoever controls the seed, controls the food supply, controls the human population. So, take back the seed.
Supporting locals as a solution-based, it's a hub first to bring awareness, and I believe strongly that awareness is the first step to positive change. And so I use locals as a hub to raise the awareness, but some of the solutions that we need to come together on here is we got to get organized in our communities here initially. We have to go to places like the big corporations here, like Safeway, for example. And it was funny, last year I heard that Safeway was welcoming our farmers market to come into the parking lot of Safeway. And I heard that through just people talking at our market. And that right away the hair stood up. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so of course Safeway wanted you to finish up their shopping at their store after doing the market. This is not rocket science to figure that one out. So what I did is I went down there a week later. I asked for the produce manager, and I asked him, I said, can you please point me out to the local produce section, please? And I wasn't looking at him, I was waiting for him to point. And of course he could not, and I could see he's looking at me. But he's looking at me like I'm loopy or something like that. And he said, well, we don't have a local produce section. And I said, really? I said, this is agricultural capital here. You know, I said, you're asking to have our farmers market come onto your parking lot here, and you don't even carry our local farm produce. So what I thought about here as part of the solutions here is a lot of people I know here that are part of the locals network here. A lot of us just don't support the big corporate stores. We try to do it as little as possible. We need to go actually in there, and this is like a peaceful revolution here, but this is just a start to some simple solutions here to take our country back. Is you ask for the local produce section, and when they say they don't have one, you just simply tell them, well, then I'm sorry, I cannot finish up my shopping in your store, but what I will do is I'll try you back in a month. Okay, so if we do this by the numbers, okay, not just one or two, so I even talked to a few of them while I'm there too. I'm not a radicalist. I don't, jump down their throats or anything like that. But I asked them, I said, is there other people like me that have actually come and asked you this? And they're like, honestly, really no. So it's one thing to stop doing it, but you need to tell them, because to fight the big corporations, it makes it an uphill battle. If we actually get them to start supporting the farmers, even just a little bit, that's why like Quality Greens, they bring in local produce. A couple of the other local markets do that as well. But we need to get organized on this. So another thing I just hosted my first conference, and I'm not a public speaker. I am not well, I'm getting that way now. I used to call it the Elvis when I did sales and marketing. We had to go up in front of our class here to talk, and my lip would start to shake and my leg would start to go when it came to public speaking. So what? 30 seconds. Okay. So what I'm looking to start here, okay, and I already started this at the conference I just hosted. We're going to form the union, the true union of we the people of BC here. Bill Vander Zalm proved it twice that he organized 700,000 signatures. So when we start to make a movement, when we tell them we don't want GMO foods, we want GMO labeling, whatever, we do it by the thousands. So this is where they start to listen. And that goes for many other issues, such as smart meters, chemtrails, all that stuff too. Thank you very much.